Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to the fall campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. This week, the curtain is about to fall on the fall campaign as we venture into the last scenario of the campaign, Return to the Devourer below. Last week in Return to the Midnight Masks, we picked up 3 experience, no further trauma, and we interrogated 2 cultists. Granted, one of those interrogations involved a machete, but the important part is they're out of the way. We'll see how the cultists who got away play into this scenario, but for now, let's go ahead and set the scene.
Scenario 3, The Devourer Below. After a frantic nighttime search throughout Arkham, you have tracked down and questioned several members of the cult. Your findings are disturbing. They claim to worship a being known as Umordoth, a monstrous entity from another realm. You were able to confirm much of Lita's story. The cult is agitated over the destruction of a ghoul lair. However, a surprising detail also turns up. The one who invaded the lair and set this night's events in motion was none other than Lita Chandler herself. You are not sure why this important detail was omitted from Lita's story. Did she tell you only as much as was necessary to draw you into her conflict? But in another light, she seems to be fighting to protect Arkham, the city of Arkham, from a terrible menace. The final piece of the puzzle was found written in a journal possessed by one of the cultists. It describes a dark ritual to be performed deep within the woods south of Arkham this very night. According to the journal, the ritual's completion will open a gate and bring forth the cult's dark master into this world. If the cult is not stopped, Lita warns, there is a possibility that Umordoth's vengeance will consume all in its path. Frightened but determined to stop the ritual, you head into the woods.
I hate when people only tell me enough information as they need to in order to pull me into whatever they're dealing with. That probably drives them nuts as much as it drives me nuts. But anyway, that's what we're up against. Now let me remind everybody of our tarot reading from the upgrades video, and this time I will actually remember to link it in the description down below. So our 2 cards that we drew were the Magician 1 and the Chariot 7, and the Chariot 7 once again. As you recall, we flipped the Magician 1, we kept the Magician 1 on its good side. Each investigator begins the game with 3 additional resources, but we flipped the Chariot 7 over to the bad side, where each investigator begins the game with 2 fewer cards in their opening hand and can't draw cards during their first turn. The reason I did it like this rather than the other way around is because I wanted to be more likely to be able to pay for the cards that we have in our opening hands, because the decks have a lot of expensive assets, so I wanted to see some good stuff and then be able to play it right away. So that was the rationale there. But anyway, speaking of those starting hands, let's take a look at those next. We'll start with Winifred, who will once again be our lead investigator. So she has a copy of Sneak By, which is 0 cost to play, 2 agility icons on commit. But we get to evade. When this action begins, gain 2 resources, and I'll go through the flavor text when we actually play it. Then we have 2 copies of Lockpicks. So as an action, we exhaust Lockpicks to investigate. Add your agility value to your skill value for this investigation, but if you don't succeed by at least 2, discard Lockpicks, and it takes up a hand slot. So for Joe's opening hand, we actually have some very expensive stuff. It's going to be a question of what are we going to play. So we're going to start off by seeing a copy of Dr. Milan Christopher, Professor of Entomology. 4 cost to play, lore on commit. You get +1 lore. After you successfully investigate, gain 1 resource. I have a feeling our first action will be playing some combination of cards. First actions for Joe will be playing some combination of cards in this opening hand. Then we have a machete. 3 cost to play, plus a combat on commit. As an action, fight. You get +1 combat for this attack. If the attacked enemy is the only enemy engaged with you, that attack deals +1 damage. And we have a copy of 45 Automatic. 4 cost to play, agility icon on commit. Uses 4 ammo. As an action, spend an ammo, fight. You get +1 combat for this attack, and this attack deals +1 damage. So we have a lot of weapons, we just have to decide what we want to play here. But on that note, let's take a look next at our opening act and agenda decks. So we'll start off with the agenda. Agenda 1A, the Arkham Woods. From interrogating members of the conspiracy within Arkham, you have learned that they are performing a rite of vengeance in response to the destruction of one of their master's lairs. You have entered the woods outside Arkham to try to stop them. The woods seem unnaturally cold and filled with a deathly silence. We need 4 Doom to advance that, but we're actually starting that agenda. Once I get that back in, there we go. We're actually starting the agenda with 2 Doom in play, with 2 Doom on it, because as part of setup, we had to check the number of cultists who got away. So because we had 4 cultists who got away last scenario, that means we placed 2 Doom on the agenda to start. Now taking a look at the act, our first act, we have, here we go. Act 1A, Investigating the Trail. The evidence you've gathered has led you to the woods south of Arkham, where you believe a ritual to summon a being called Umordoth is about to take place. Stealing your resolve, you set forth deeper into the woods, hoping to find the site of this ritual. We need 3 per investigator or 6 clues to advance that. Anyway, that will do it for the act and agenda decks. Finally, we'll move over to the map with Winifred and Joe. Here's our starting map. Joe and Winifred are going to start down here at the main path. You can see we have 4 Arkham Woods locations, but I'll go through those once we actually move into them. So for the main path, Hangman's Brook separates Uptown from the woods south of Arkham. Passing over the small bridge, you follow the main path deeper into the forest. Then we'll flip this over to find Shroud of 2, no clues. The main path is connected to each other woods location. As an action, we can resign. There's nothing we can do to stop them. You flee into the woods, leaving Arkham to its grisly fate. Okay, so it does not look like we're going to have any reason whatsoever to stay here. But that's everything set for the scenario, so we're ready to get started. And as our lead investigator, we'll start off with Winifred, and we'll drop down to her play area. Here we are with Winifred. For action 1, we are going to go ahead and spend her 3 of her resources. Come on, there we go. To play 1 of her copies of lockpicks. So as we recall from the starting hand, as an action we exhaust lockpicks to investigate, adding her agility value to her skill value for this investigation. But if she doesn't succeed by at least 2, we discard it. Which I might not mind too much just because I've got my other lockpicks in my hand. The rest of Winifred's turn will take us over to the map. Since there's nothing for us at the main path right now, we'll just get moving on revealing these Arkham Woods locations. So for action 2, Winifred will move up to this Arkham Woods location. Growing up, you were always warned to stay out of the woods at night. Now you know why. And we flip it over to its revealed side. To find a Shroud of 2, 2 clues. This location is investigated using will instead of the skill indicated by the investigation attempt. Oh, that is a laugh. Remember, Winifred's base will is 1. Although, we do get to add her agility to her skill value for this investigation. So, I think for action 3, we might as well. We'll exhaust lockpicks. So investigated using will instead of normally lore. So we do get to add 5 to that will, So it's a 6 to 2. Winifred is up 4. Elder Thing, this can't be good. -5. If there's an Ancient One enemy in play, reveal another token. Thankfully, there is not an Ancient One enemy in play. We do get the clue, but Lockpicks is discarded. That was moderately annoying. So yeah, I think we're going to have to get Winifred out of there and nothing flat. But anyway, not that we really have a good investigator we can send up there. Winifred's based down 1 and Joe's even trying to get that last clue. But it may have to be Winifred trying to get it with her other lockpicks, but that will do it for Winifred's turn. Joe's turn will start at his play area. Joe's turn will probably look a lot like Winifred's first turn. Action 1, he'll spend 4 resources to play something that'll help with his investigation as well. He'll be playing Dr. Milan Christopher. While I truly pray that this nightmare is just a singular abomination, I must admit that I am exhilarated by the possibility that this is but one specimen of a new genus. 1 health, 2 sanity on soak. So that's action 1. And then, like I thought, actions 2 and 3 will take us back over to the map. Action 2 for Joe will take him up to a different Arkham Woods location. We'll take him up here, and then we'll reveal Arkham Woods Corpse-Ridden Clearing. Shroud of 3, 2 clues. Each enemy at this location cannot take more than 1 damage from each attack performed against it. The remains of half-eaten animal corpses litter this section of the woods, befouling the air with their stench. So we'll grab the 2 clues out for that. That was action 2. Action 3, we'll go ahead and investigate. Joe is up 2. Skull is -X, where X is the number of monster enemies in play. Thankfully, that's 0, so we do get a clue and a resource for Joe. Now, before we move into the enemy phase, I do want to mention something, because you saw the Elder Thing token that had never come up before in this campaign. That's because also as part of setup, we had to add that to the Chaos Bag. So that's why the Elder Thing token is in there now. But anyway, just a quick aside on that. That will do it for the investigation phase, and I forgot to reveal Joe's hunch deck. Let's see if this would have changed anything. I may have to rewind. Joe's turn probably wouldn't look too different. Let's see what's on top. Working a hunch. So, actually, yeah, I totally forgot about that. So he will actually grab that. We'll actually use that to grab the last clue off the location. I completely spaced on the hunch deck. This is why I've always been kind of hesitant around Joe. Because it seems like the hunch deck is something that I tend to forget about. Especially in my first run with him when I took him into Return to Path to Carcosa as a replacement investigator, I was terrible about remembering the hunch deck. But yes, I will try to be more careful about the hunch deck as well. But anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, again, first turn of the round, so there are no enemies in play. So now we'll reset everything. And then we will move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. I put the extra action token that I've got from Orbits on Joe's hunch deck, so hopefully I'll remember this time. But anyway, Winifred and Joe will each gain a resource and both go up to 6. After the tarot deck said we couldn't draw cards for the start of our turn, or during our first turn, this will be very welcome. So Winifred will draw Lucky Cigarette Case, which probably will be very welcome. So as a reaction, it's 2 cost to play Will on Commit. As an action, after you succeed at a skill test by 2 or more, exhaust it to draw a card. And then Joe will draw his dream diary, Dreams of a Madman. So we can only include this yada yada yada. While you're engaged with an enemy, your essence of the dream gets 2 question marks. And when your turn begins, search your bonded cards for Essence of the Dream and add it to your hand. So that will be very handy. And we'll see Essence of the Dream probably later on in this scenario. But anyway, Now we'll transition into the Mythos phase. Doom on the agenda will go up to 3. Winifred will draw. Mask of Umordoth. Attach to the farthest cultist and place 1 Doom on that enemy. If there are no cultists in play, which there are not, search the encounter deck and discard pile for a cultist, draw it, and attach Mask of Umordoth to it. Shuffle the encounter deck. Attached enemy gets +2 health. If attached enemy is not unique, it gains Aloof. If attached enemy is unique, it gains Retaliate. So whatever we pull out is going to gain Aloof. So, what do we want to pull out here? Acolyte of Umordoth. We could take Corpse Taker, but I don't want to take that. I think I will pick out... I think I'll pick out Disciple of the Devourer and plan on sending Joe up to deal with it. So Disciple of the Devourer. This is a bit of a risky play, just because Ancient Evils is in the deck. But anyway. So 3, 3, and 1. It'll have +2 health because of the being unique with the Mask of Umordoth. I think what I'm going to do to denote that is I'm going to use a clue token that I'll flip to that side if it's Aloof, or that side if it's going to have Retaliate. So we'll put the mask there. I'll spawn the Disciple of the Devourer, but after I finish going through it. Spawn at the farthest empty location. Forced, after you spawn it, you must either place 1 Doom on it or place 1 of your clues on its location. If the current agenda is not 1A, do both instead. Placate the beast, and we are allowed to live. When we die, it will feast on our remains. So we'll spawn that at the Arkham Woods away from Winifred. Then what did I do with the Doom? Oh, here's the Doom going on the Disciple. So the reason this is a risky play is I shuffle the encounter deck, and I'm hoping I'm not willing this to happen, is that Ancient Evils is in this encounter deck. So if we draw that, or we leave that Disciple of the Devourer alive, so if we draw Ancient Evils, we're advancing. If we don't, we have time to, well, we're going to be advancing anyway next round, so whether we deal with that Disciple or not won't really matter. And then he'll sit out there just not doing anything. So Joe will draw. Umordoth's Wrath. Test Will 5. For each point you fail by, you must either choose 1. Choose and discard a card from your hand, or take 1 and 1. A deathly chill engulfs you, attempting to suck your life force away. So let me give you a translation on that card, and I'll explain why this translation is going to be accurate. Test. Take 5 minus your will, either discard that many cards, or take that much damage and horror. Because the problem here is that Joe as a base is down 3. Joe is down 3. So I think my only hope right now, unfortunately, and as much as I wanted to play this, I'm going to lose it anyway. So I'm going to commit Essence of the Dream, or not Essence of the Dream, Dream Diary. I wish I was committing Essence of the Dream. I'm going to have to commit this to go down 2 and try to protect the weapons in my hand. Although now that I can draw, that might be something to keep an eye on. So, down 2. Alright, a 0, unfortunately, means I still lose both my weapons anyway. Which is it's not the greatest thing in the world right now, but it's also not terrible. Although we do have the 1 Disciple of the Devourer out right now. But ultimately, he's probably not going to do anything. So, with that said, we're back into the investigation phase now, and I will remember this time to draw the top card of the Hunch deck, which we find. Scene of the crime on top. I'm not happy to see this once again. Play this only as your first action. Discover a clue at your location. 2 instead if there's an enemy at your location. This action doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. But anyway, we will start off with Winifred, and we'll move down to her play area. Action 1 for Winifred. We're going to play her other copy of Lockpicks and hope that we don't get these discarded from her hand as well. Then Action 2, we're going to go ahead and play the Lucky Cigarette Case, which will let us draw a card if we succeed at a test by 2 or more. It's not really all that lucky, just in the mood for a smoke. Remits her accessory slot. Action 3, along with Joe's turn, will take us over to the map. Action 3, we're going to exhaust the aforementioned lockpicks. So Winifred, not pulling the Elder Thing token would be great. We're up 5. +1 gets us the last clue, and it lets me exhaust Lucky Cigarette Case to draw a card, since we succeeded by 6. So Winifred will draw Opportunist. Commit only to a skill test you're performing, with a 1 question mark on commit. If you succeed by 3 or more, return Opportunist to your hand after this test instead of discarding it. Okay, that will do it for Winifred. Joe's turn is going to be very quick, so he's going to move 1 to the main path, 2 to this Arkham Woods location, and let's see what we find here. We find Great Willow, Shroud of 4, 2 clues. Forced. After an investigator at this location succeeds at a skill test on a treachery, that treachery gains surge. Group limit once per round. It seems to groan and twist in the chill wind as though alive. So here we actually want to see testless treachery cards. And that's with actions 1 and 2. Action 3 will be an investigate, and we are up 1. I didn't even bother looking in Joe's hand because there's nothing he can commit. Because he's got no hand right now. Up 1. Cultist can't be good. -2, place 1 doom on the nearest enemy. So unfortunately we do fail that, and we put another doom on the Disciple of the Devourer. Anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase, which means Scene of the Crime shuffles back into Joe's hunch deck. So once we get that shuffled, alright, then we'll give that a cut. Enemy phase, the Disciple of the Devourer, which is still up here in shot, won't do anything. That was a very uneventful enemy phase, so now we'll reset everything. And then we'll move back up top for the Upkeep phase. We're back up top for the Upkeep phase. Winifred will gain 1 resource and go to 2. Joe will gain 1 resource and go to 7. Winifred will draw Daredevil. After you commit Daredevil to a skill test, discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard a rogue skill you can commit to this test. Commit it. Shuffle each weakness that was discarded by this effect back into your deck. You're a maniac. I'll go through the flavor text when I actually play it, or commit it. Joe draws Fingerprint Kit. 4 cost to play, lore on commit. Uses 3 supplies. As an action, exhaust Fingerprint Kit and spend 1 supply, investigate. You get +1 lore for this investigation. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at your location. Okay, so that will do it for the Upkeep phase. Mythos phase, we are advancing the agenda. Okay. Throughout the woods, a shrieking cry echoes. From somewhere deeper in the forest, a score of hideous voices answer the call, inhuman at the baying of hounds and yet articulate, repeating singular name, Umordoth, Umordoth, Umordoth. I know, that was lousy. Shuffle the encountered discard pile into the encounter deck and discard cards up from the top until a monster enemy is discarded. Spawn that enemy at the main path. then place 1 doom on that enemy. So we shuffle our Umordoth's Wrath back in. Then we discard until we hit a monster. So, that didn't take long. That's a monster. Oh, Joe. And this thing is very hideous. So we have ourselves a Yithian Observer. 4 health, or 4 combat, 4 health, 3 evade. Play fewest cards in hand. Forced. When Yithian Observer attacks you, discard 1 card at random. At random from your hand. If you can't, Yithian Observer deals +1 damage and +1 horror for this attack. Victory 1, 1 damage, 1 horror on attack. And we have to place 1 doom on it. Yikes. That could be a problem. Oh, joy. Alright, Agenda 2A. The ritual begins. Umordoth. 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 The chanting builds in intensity, echoing into the cold air of the night. The sparse clouds in the sky coalesce above the Arkham woods, blotting out the faint light of the stars. Each enemy gets +1 fight and +1 evade. Oh, joy. And we need 5 doom to advance that. So right now, the Yithian Observer is now a 5/4/3. Similarly, the Disciple of the Devourer is still a 4/1/2. But anyway... let's take a look at, let's draw our encounter cards now. So Winifred will draw Dissonant Voices. Put it into play in your threat area. You can't play assets or events. And at the end of the round, discard Dissonant Voices. Fantastic. Which basically means she's all but trapped in the old house. And then Joe draws Ancient Evils. Revelation to place 1 doom on the current agenda. This effect can cause the current agenda to advance. Dark forces plot against you. If you don't act quickly, a sinister plot will be fulfilled. So that puts us up to 1 doom on the agenda, 2 in play because of the agenda advancing. Anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Now let's see what's on top of Joe's hunch deck. We find Shortcut. Play only during your turn. Choose an investigator at your location. Move that investigator to a connecting location. Oh boy. That sounds like it's going to be fun. Although I don't know. That might be something we use coming up here pretty quick. But I think that will do it for the Mythos phase. So now we're into the investigation phase. And I think we will start with Joe and we'll drop down to his play area. All right, here's Joe. So for action 1, we're going to spend 4 of his resources for the aforementioned fingerprint kit. So once again, you investigate with +1 lore for this investigation. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at your location. I'm only going to grab 2 supplies for it using these handy brass-backed tokens from LCG Tokens, link to which will be in the the description box down below. Action 2, we will exhaust that. So 4, 5, 6 to 4, he's up 2. Up 2, trying to get both those clues. -2 does get him both those clues and a resource. It will also let us advance the act, which I think we will do immediately. Alright. Oh boy. Unveiling the plan. Scattered throughout the forest, you've seen glyphs and arcane sigils in various places, etched into the bark of trees, carved upon the faces of stones, and dripped in blood upon the ground. Though you can't decipher these glyphs, you notice that most of them tend to face south. Following these signs leads you by twists and turns toward a cave in the darkest and coldest part of the forest. As you advance, shadowy figures emerge from the trees, blocking the only path to the cave. Put the set-aside ritual site into play if it is not already in play. Search the collection for each enemy recorded in your campaign log under Cultists Who Got Away, and spawn those enemies at the main path. Oh, fantastic. Alright, so we get the ritual site, and we'll go through the cultist enemies in a second. But first we have the ritual site. We'll look at the unrevealed side here. The large central chamber of a cold, dark cavern adorned with arcane markings and dimly lit by candlelight. And that connects to the main path. Alright, so I'll put that over here. When we move over to the map with Winifred, I'll show you where I'm putting the ritual site. Alright, and then our new act. Act 2A, Into the Darkness. The remaining cultists have followed you into the woods to try to stop you. And now they block the path to your objective. They stand ominously beneath the overhanging trees, silent sentinels in the night. You must defeat them or sneak past if you are to gain access to the site of their ritual. Objective: if an investigator enters the ritual site, advance. Okay, so the cultists who got away were the masked hunter, who will be looking for the prey, most clues, but we can choose since nobody has clues right now. Hunter, +2 health per investigator, so it's actually a 5-8-3. While you're engaged with the masked hunter, you can't discover or spend clues. Ruth Turner, who's a 3-4-6. After Ruth Turner is evaded, add her to the victory display. Bodies from the morgue have mysteriously gone missing. Perhaps the mortician in St. Mary's has something to do with their disappearances. Then we have Wolfman Drew, who's a 5-4-3, the cannibal. When he attacks, heal 1 damage from him. Drew is a longtime patient in Arkham Asylum. Rumor has it that he was locked up for committing cannibalism several years ago. He is considered extremely dangerous. You think? And we have Herman Collins, the Undertaker. 4-4-5. As an action, choose and discard 4 cards from your hand to parlay and add them to the victory display. The Undertaker in the local graveyard has been digging strange tunnels underneath the mausoleum. For what purpose? 1 and 1 from him on attack, 2 and 1 from the masked hunter, 1 damage from Ruth, and 2 damage from Wolfman Drew. So we're going to get punched in the face very quickly. All of those will go to the main path. And then action 3 for Joe. We forgot to give him the resource from Milan. Resource, there we go. Action 3 will be to draw a card. So he will draw a magnifying glass. Get +1 lore while investigating. Now, I'm not going to shortcut down there in a million years. In fact, I really don't want to bring Winifred down there right now either. So I think we'll take a quick stop at the map, but then Winifred will end up at her play area, because her turn changed considerably from what I had in mind when 4 more enemies spawned. But anyway, with that, let's move over to the map. First up, the minor detail, the ritual site. That's down over here, connected to the main path, which you can't see in the wake of our bigger problem, which is 4 enemies, that have the 4 cultists who got away, that we couldn't get to. So, I am not bringing Winifred down there in a million years. She will not survive the trip. Well, she can survive 1 trip there, but she won't survive a second. So anyway, action 1 for Winifred will draw a card. She will draw a Mauser C96. This might make her a little more likely to survive the trip. 4 cost to play. She doesn't have 4 resources right now. Uses 5 well, she can't play it right now because of dissonant voices anyway. Uses 5 ammo. As an action, exhausted and spend 1 ammo, fight. You get +1 combat and deal +1 damage for this attack. If you succeed by 2 or more, either ready it or gain a resource. Then action 2 will draw a card. She will draw next. Leather Jacket. 2 cost to play, combat and commit. Fast. 2 damage on soak, and it takes up a body slot. Then action 3 I think action 3 is actually going to be to take a resource. That will do it for Winifred's actions. That will do it for the investigation phase. So I'll shuffle Shortcut, which I thought I was going to play, back into the encounter deck. Yeah, 4 enemies coming out kind of changed my mind on bringing the... moving Joe into that mess. Alright, so I will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, our only hunter right now is the aforementioned Masked Hunter. So I'm actually going to move him up to Winifred. He'll make friends. And then Winifred will take 2 damage and a horror. So there's the 2 and 1, which the 1 horror will actually flip the 1 on Winifred to a 2. Anyway, that will do it for the enemy phase. We'll reset everything here. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Winifred will gain 1 resource and go to 4. Joe will gain 1 resource and go to 5. Winifred will draw. Another is Sneak By, which will probably be playing 1 of those this turn, barring another Dissonant Voices, which could very easily happen. Joe will draw. True Understanding. Commit only to a skill test from an ability printed on a scenario card. If this skill test is successful, discover 1 additional clue, 1 clue at your location. Alright, so Mythos Phase, actually end around Winifred's Dissonant Voices goes away. I'll put this back up here so I remember. Mythos Phase now, Doom on the agenda goes up to 3. Winifred draws. Umrdoth's Hunger. Each investigator who must discard 1 card at random from his or her hand. Each investigator who has no cards in his or her hand is killed. Heal 1 damage from each enemy in play. Thankfully, this was not the first card that one of the first cards that came up, because we would have had a big problem. So it's a good thing Winifred drew a whole bunch of cards. Joe, unfortunately, is not really going to be able to protect his hand as well. So we'll give this a shuffle. I should still have a copy of Sneak By to try to get past this Masked Hunter. But we will find out. Take the top card, we lose. The Mauser. That was probably the 1 card I didn't want to lose. Joe will lose this card. He will lose True Understanding. That's unfortunate. Right. And then Joe draws. Another Yithian Observer. Oh, joy. We saw this from... We see this at the main path. So, yeah. That's going to cause us problems. That's a 5/4/4 to try to sneak past. Forced, when it attacks you, discard 1 card at random from your hand. If you can't, Yithian Observer deals +1 damage and +1 horror for this attack. Then on top of Joe's Hunch deck, we find... Burning the Midnight Oil. Investigate. When this action begins, gain 2 resources. Wonderful. Right now we are not particularly wanting to investigate, and we're surrounded. So... yeah. Anyway, that will do it for the investigation, or the enemy phase, and now we're into the investigation phase. Our predicament just got really bad. So, what to do, Yikes. And unfortunately, we are in a lot of trouble with trying to attack. So, I guess we start with Winifred. The problem right now is the main path is a complete mess. So there's a very real temptation right now to push the resign button. But I'm going to try not to do that, even though, like I said, the temptation is strong with this one right now to resign. But we're going to fight it out, see how we can do with this. Anyway, our first investigator will be Winifred, and we'll move over to her play area. Alright, so Winifred for Action 1 is going to try to sneak past this masked hunter so she can evade. When this action begins, she gains 2 resources, goes up to 6. Right now she's up 2, and I'm going to commit Opportunist to go up 3. And if I succeed by 3 or more, that comes back to my hand instead of being discarded. -1 means I lose Opportunist. The Masked Hunter is evaded, but I do get to exhaust the Lucky Cigarette case to draw a card. So Winifred will draw another Lucky Cigarette case, which I'm not particularly happy to see right now. Action 2 will be to draw a card. So Winifred will draw. Slip away. Evade, add your lore value to your skill value for this evasion attempt. If you succeed by 2 or more and the evaded enemy is non-elite, it does not ready during the Upkeep Phase. Can she survive 1 trip in there? I don't want to discard a card from the Yithian Observer, though. Actually, we might... That's risky, too. But Action 3... So we'd be taking 5 damage and 2 sanity from that attack. Or from getting attacked down there. I would put her 1 damage from dead. From defeated by damage. That is not a play I like right now. I guess Action 3, I'll draw a card. So Winifred will draw. Daredevil. So we have this, we already have that in the opening hand, or in the hand. Anyway, that will do it for Winifred, who is very surrounded. Now we'll move over to Joe. Unfortunately, right now, we really don't have much of a plan with Joe, because he's not likely evading that Yithian Observer, and the treachery from last turn, what was it? One of the treacheries from earlier actually cost us most of our hand. So, I guess Action 1... gross. We have a magnifying glass in hand. That's not going to be helpful at all. So I guess Action 1, we try to punch this thing. We're down 1 right now trying to punch it, but I think it's the only thing we can do here. Yeah, the Elder thing is a -5. If there's an Ancient One enemy in play, reveal another token. There is not, but the test very much fails. Action 2 will be to go ahead and run the attack back. So down 5, so down 1, I should say. -1 does put a damage on him, on the Yithian Observer. And then Action 3 will just run the attack back. Still, wait. Down 1 means he would have failed again. Yep. Okay, so 3 failed attacks. Anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, the only relevant enemy for that is the Ithian Observer. Technically, I left the Masked Hunter in Winifred's threat area because she wasn't able to leave the location, so it'll be coming right back to her. But anyway, the Ithian Observer discards 1 card. When it attacks, makes you discard 1 card at random from your hand, which I'll shuffle the 1 card, and discard our Magnifying Glass. Hey, look at that. Then we take 1 and 1, so we flip both of those over to 2s. Anyway, that will do it for the investigation, or for the enemy phase. I'll shuffle the Hunch deck back up. Then we'll move back up top for the Upkeep phase. We're back up top for the Upkeep phase. Winifred will gain 1 resource and go to 7. Joe will gain a resource and go up to 6. Winifred will draw. Nimble. For each point the skill test succeeds by, after it resolves, you may immediately move to a connecting location to a maximum of 3 times. Interesting. And then Joe will draw. Deduction. If this skill test is successful while investigating a location, discover 1 additional clue at that location. 2 additional clues instead if you succeed by 2 or more. Okay, Mythos phase. Doom on the agenda goes up to 4. It goes up to 3, but we're at 4 Doom in play because of the Ithian Observer. Winifred will draw. Chill from below. Test Will 3. For each point you fail by, you must discard 1 card at random from your hand. For each card you can't discard, take 1 damage. The ground is covered in ice and frost, and a deep chill courses through the air. Oh, right now we're down 2 gross. Looking at the hand, I'm going to commit a lucky cigarette case to go up 3, or to go up 1, or no, to go down 1. Then I'll commit Daredevil to get even, and now I have two triggered effects. After I commit Daredevil to a test, commit cards from the top of your deck until you discard a rogue skill you can commit. Commit it. Shuffle each weakness that was discarded by this effect back into your deck. So I think as soon as we commit it, I think we do the discard part first. Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight from the future here. I will ultimately handle this wrong. So the way this should work is Daredevil should trigger first, which means I'll go into my deck, discarding cards until I find a rogue skill I can commit, shuffling weaknesses back into the deck. Then I'll get to draw from Winifred's special ability. Just wanted to clarify that. After we commit it, and then the reason I'm looking at Winifred's special ability. If 2 non-weakness cards you control are committed to this skill test, draw 1 card. So I think I get to choose the order on how those go. So I'll actually draw the card first. I'm going to rule it for now that I get to choose the order. But I'm going to get an official ruling on that, and I'll put something up. Have something up on the screen for an official ruling. So I'll draw the card first, which means Winifred will draw. Oh, fantastic. I should have done the discard first, but it's too late to run this back now. Arrogance. You must commit it to each eligible skill test you perform. If the skill's icons subtract from your skill value instead of adding to it, if the test succeeds, return this skill to your hand. So unfortunately, I do have to commit it, which puts me down 1. Now I want to see Now I actually want to see something that's not going to give me a lot of icons. So I'll discard until I hit a skill I can commit. Really, Winifred? I needed this later. Anything you can do better. Great. So, alright, so that brought me to even. That brought me back down 1. Now I'm up 6 gross. I'm up 6. The reason I'm not happy here is because that's going to bring arrogance back to my hand. I will get to draw an additional card, but yeah. Wow! I think I may have dodged a bullet here. So, Winifred's Elder Sign is +1. After this test ends, for every 2 points you succeeded by, return a card committed from your hand, from this test, to your hand. So, Winifred actually passes, which means everything comes back to her hand, including anything you can do better. So that is very much a dodge of the bullet there for Winifred. Then Joe will draw. Rotting Remains. Test Will 3. For each point you fail by, take 1 horror. Uh-oh. And he's based down 1. So here's where I'm trying to duck the 1. -2 basically is the same thing as a tentacle. So Joe actually takes 3 horror, which means unless he can get away from this Yithian Observer, he's going to be defeated by sanity this round. So there's the 3 horror on that. Anyway, we're into the investigation phase next. So let's see what's on top of Joe's hunch deck. We find Shortcut, which we probably will not be using. But anyway, let's start let's start the investigation phase with let's start it with Joe, I guess, because that's going to help me figure out what I'm doing with the rest of the round, and then we'll move down to his play area. Our peril is pretty simple with Joe. He's probably just dead, full stop. So, I think action 1... Yeah, I think, looking at our situation, I think Joe is just dead and there's really nothing I can do about it. So, action 1... Do we just send Joe out Because I don't think we can... Yeah, there's really no way we can get Joe out of this, because we can't damage that Yithian Observer, and we're not evading it down 2 in a million years. So yeah, we are probably screwed any way we try to do this. Well, we might as well just fight it out. So action 1... Action 1, we'll try to attack it, I guess. Even though, again, we are down 1. -1 says no. Action 2 will run the attack back. Skull is -X, where X is the number of monster enemies in play, which is also 2, so that's a fail. Then action 3, we'll just run the attack back. +1 deals a damage to it. That's just on principle at this point. Anyway, that will do it for Joe. Whoops. I'm going to run all 3 of those tests back because I didn't have the Elder Sign in there. So I'm even going to run the 1 damage back. So action 1. These are all still going to be attack actions. Action 2. And action 3. Still does 1 damage. Not that it's really going to matter in the grand scheme of things. Winifred's turn will then take us over to the map. Winifred's turn could very easily have started at her play area, but we are going to start it over here. So we're going to start off with an evasion attempt, which I have to commit arrogance to, because it must be committed to each eligible skill test I perform. So that brings us down 2. Then I'm going to use Nimble to bring me back up 3. I'm not going to mind the fail here, because I do want... I'm not going to mind the fail well, let's just get into this test. We're up 3. Skull is -2. So we do bring arrogance back to the hand, and that's the only reason why I wouldn't have minded the fail, because that would have gotten out of our hand. Masked Hunter will be evaded, and then because of Nimble, Winifred will move down to the main path, making friends with all of that mess. But she's not going to be staying there for very long, because for action 2, she's actually going to push the resign button, because there's no way we're getting through that wall. So Winifred's going to resign, because we know we're basically screwed at this point. Then moving into the enemy phase, Joe discards his card, but he's still defeated by Sanity. So with Winifred having resigned and Joe being defeated by Sanity, the scenario is now over. So we'll go ahead and move back up top to wrap this video up. We're back up top to wrap this scenario up. So we have the resolution that we want. Now let's let this play.
If no resolution was reached, each investigator resigned or was defeated.
Okay, never mind.
Too frightened to face her fate, Lita flees into the night. She realizes that she has failed, and Umardov's vengeance will pursue her wherever she goes. The creature's tendrils spread throughout the city of Arkham, searching for her. It lurks in the darkness of every corner, tugging at the seams of reality, but Lita is nowhere to be found, so the creature dwells in the shadows to this day, searching, killing. In your campaign log, record that Arkham succumbed to Umardov's terrible vengeance. Each surviving investigator is killed. The investigators lose the campaign. Resolution 1.
Zip it. Arkham succumbed to Umardov's terrible vengeance. Okay, so yeah. That's where having the 4 cultists get away kind of haunted us in a couple of different ways. Because it gave us starting doom on that, and it gave us 2 starting doom on the agenda, and caused 4 cultists to come out and cause problems. Also, losing weapons at the start of the scenario, so losing those weapons that early in the scenario really didn't help out too much. But anyway, that will do it for the fall campaign. That will do it for this video. Later this week, we'll officially wrap up the fall campaign. Then next week, we'll step back into a game we previously played on the channel. We're going to step back into Massive Darkness and start kind of a background campaign on that. More on that next week. For now, thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, have a happy Thanksgiving, and take care, everyone.
Thank you.